Call the meeting to order. Will the clerk please read the statement of meeting notice?
This is the meeting of the Township Council for Monday, April 13th. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public and the press on January 4th, 2015. It was posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, all in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-7.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Lynch?
Here.
Councilmember Murphy?
Here.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Here.
Council President Rizzuto.
Here. Will the township attorney please read the resolution to go into executive session?
Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act permits the exclusion of the public in certain circumstances, whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Vernon as follows. The public shall be excluded from the discussion of and action upon hereafter specified subject matter. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed are contractual negotiations, property acquisitions, anticipated time of disclosure, October 2015. This resolution shall take effect immediately.
May I have a motion to enter into executive session?
Motion.
Motion made by Mr. Lynch. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kadesh. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Call the meeting to order. I'll entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
Motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Murphy. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Lynch. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Will the clerk please read the statement for the meeting notice for this meeting?
Meeting of the Township Council for Monday, April 13th, 2015. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public and to the press and by posting at the municipal board on January 4th, 2015, all in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-7.
Thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Kadesh?
Here.
Councilmember Lynch?
Here.
Councilmember Murphy?
Here.
Member Wetzel?
Here.
Council President Rizzuto.
Here. Would you please stand and join with me in a pledge to the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Last week, we had a sudden loss of a very active member of our community and a past chief in our Highland Lakes Fire Department, Mr. George Bremer, passed away suddenly. In memory of his service and our affection towards him and his family, a moment of silence, please. Thank you.
I'd just like to say that, thank you, Council President, for bringing that forward. Greg Bremer was a trustee, life member, devoted father, devoted husband, and a very faithful brother firefighter. And he will sorely be missed. And although he was never elected as chief of the department, he will
Oh, I'm sorry,
always...
I thought he was.
It's okay, he'll always be a chief friend. Thank you.
Thank you for your correction. This evening, we have a proclamation for Child Abuse Prevention Month for the month of April. Will Victoria Simone and Rhonda Beadle of Ginny's House please come forward? Are you here? I'd like to read the proclamation. Whereas the maltreatment, abuse, and neglect of children is a significant social problem that damages children physically, mentally, and emotionally, and inflicts immeasurable harm on society as a whole, and all children deserve to be nurtured, protected, and free from physical and emotional harm. And whereas the mayor and council of the Township of Vernon, as well as the state of New Jersey and the Department of Children and Families, believes that strong, healthy families are the best place to raise children. And whereas the mayor and council of the Township of Vernon, as well as the state of New Jersey, are committed to building a continuum of community-based child abuse prevention and intervention programs that are culturally competent, strength-based, and family-centered, and that achieve positive outcomes for parenting and family relationships, as well as the empowerment of domestic violence victims and their children. And whereas the mayor and council of the Township of Vernon, as well as the New Jersey Department of Children and Families, embraces the standards of prevention programs developed by the New Jersey State Task Force on Child Abuse and Neglect. And whereas all sectors of the community, including law enforcement, medical professionals, schools, courts, and media outlets, as well as numerous public and private agencies, have joined forces to promote public awareness and community involvement in strengthening families during the month of April and continuing throughout the year. Now therefore, the mayor and council of the Township of Vernon do hereby proclaim April 2015 as Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month in Vernon Township, and urge our residents to become involved in efforts aimed at strengthening families, communities, and preventing our children from being abused and neglected. Given under my hand in these free United States in the Township of Vernon on this 13th day of April, to which I have caused the seal of the Township of Vernon to be affixed, and have made this proclamation public. Patrick Rizzuto, Council President, and our Mayor, Mr. Murata, Mayor of Township.
On behalf of Ginny's House, I just want to say thank you to all of you and thank you to the council and the mayor of Vernon. It's very important that we raise awareness for this cause and start talking about these issues so we can solve them. I'm not sure if any of you know, but Ginny's House is the Children's Access Center for Sussex County. We are the hub of services for victims within our community. So, if you think that a child is showing symptoms or something is different, please make a phone call, report, and let the people that investigate take care of that. And thank you very much.
May I have a motion to open the floor to public comments?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kadesh. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Wetzel. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. If you have any comments for the council, please come forward, state your name and the area of town that you reside.
Bonnie Rubin, Highland Lakes. And I have a little something to say. At tonight's council meeting, Resolution 1578, entitled Authorizing a Contract with the Land Conservancy of New Jersey for Open Space Advisory Consultant Services in the amount not to exceed $13,000 will be presented for council approval. Basically, this resolution will award an annual contract to the Land Conservancy of New Jersey to assist Vernon with a variety of open space services. The Land Conservancy is a nonprofit organization which primarily offers technical assistance in open space planning and land preservation to municipalities and counties throughout the state. The Land Conservancy is presently engaged in a contract with Vernon. Green Acres, a program implemented under the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, ensures access to an adequate supply of lands for either public outdoor recreation or conservation of natural resources. Utilizing farmland preservation, waterways, wildlife habitat, wetlands, forests, and viewsheds are protected. On April 8, 2014, Sandy Ergo, Land Preservation Director of the New Jersey Land Conservancy, was invited to an executive session of Vernon's Environmental Commission for the purpose of negotiating an open space acquisition of Camp Sussex. An audio tape recording of this meeting was acquired by an open request of the Vernon Township Vernon Taxpayers Association. Regarding an open space ballot question for Camp Sussex, Ms. Ergo advised that 2 present township ordinances regarding open space trust fund money refer only to the preservation of parkland and do not address demolition. According to Sandy Ergo, both ordinances would have to be reworded, and that would be very difficult. She offered that the Environmental Commission play up the historic significance of the place to distract from the issue of demolition. Regarding what to tell the public about the acquisition, the Environmental Commission Secretary, Jesse Palladini, told Sandy, "Right now, our only concern is using open space money to acquire that tract for open space, period." And I'm just going to tell you what the mayor told me this morning to relate to you, okay? He said, "Don't talk about demolition costs or other finances related to the project, because demolition will come later." He said, "Don't muddy up the waters by presenting to the public, here's the parcel of land we want to buy to preserve this open space, and by the way, we have all this demolition that we have to do. The only thing you need to present to the public is to restore the American chestnut forest by purchasing this open space." Why do issues regarding the acquisition of Camp Sussex by open space have to be manipulated to deceive the public? What are the benefits of purchasing Camp Sussex, demolishing it, and growing trees? Who benefits? The public has a right to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Seeing no one else coming forward, I'm sorry. Mrs. Palladini?
Deb Buds, Vernon. Obviously, this woman needs to find out a little bit more about trees because trees benefit everyone. One tree absorbs 46 pounds of carbon a year. Obviously, you need to do some research about trees because they benefit everybody.
Thank you.
Sandy Ohms from Vernon. I agree that the Land Conservancy contract should not be renewed. Listening to the Land Conservancy, giving our and town's Environmental Commission instructions on what information should be disclosed to the public and what information should be withheld in order to get buy-in from the public for the Camp Sussex open space project was, to say the least, appalling. One can hear on the Land Conservancy make comments such as, play up this, distract them from that, as it relates to giving the taxpayer information about the project. The money for open space belongs to the taxpayer, and I, for one, do not want my money used to support an organization that encourages the use of these communication tactics on the public. I encourage anyone that is viewing this tape of this council meeting to listen to the Environmental Commission's meeting with the Land Conservancy at the Vernon Taxpayer Associations.com website under a Council Meeting tab and determine for yourself who this organization is representing and whether or not the council has made the correct decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Steve Visconti, Highland Lakes. I just want to address a couple things that I looked at in the budget. Concerned me was one, when you do the math of the salary for the council and mayor, there seems to be an extra $5,000 or $6,000 sitting there. I'm curious what that's in there for. And also the miscellaneous expense account that falls under there. Last year, I believe there was 7,000 put in there, and this year there's 22,000. Seems, and only, I think 4 was spent of that 7, so I don't understand why the extra 22 is put in there. And that's it, just some concerns I have. Also, you look at some of the stuff on the bills list. And the mayor's cell phone is costing about $200 a month. I have a family plan with 3 phones on. I pay less than that. It doesn't seem to make sense to me that one phone for one person should be that high. Just some concerns I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
How you doing?
Hi.
My name is Randy Egan. I've lived in Vernon for 25 years. I do have a handout, if I can maybe hand it out to everybody. Is that okay? Yes? Is that okay?
See what it is?
I was going to ask maybe if you guys can maybe share that one. The reason I'm here is I lived in Highland Lakes for about 20 years, and I moved a couple miles away, and we kept our home and we rented it out. And we have a tenant. We also have a neighbor that we were kind of friendly with. I apologize, I don't have enough copies. But my tenant and the neighbor really don't get along that well, and it's been going on for a while. And this law was passed in 1995. It's really a town ordinance law. And I'm asking if you could take a look at maybe doing an amendment on it. And I think this law is really more for folks, you know, that cut trees, or, you know, there's a problem at somebody's house and they can go, you know, clean it up, you know, whatever the challenge is. And this particular neighbor, my ex-neighbor, he's got a bunch of chainsaws, and he's got a log splitter, and every day, probably 4 days a week at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, he'll start it up, he'll let it go for 2 or 3 hours, whether he's using it or not, just to kind of, you know, tee off my tenant. And I've been to the police station, and they can't do anything. They're there to enforce the law, which is the way that it is written right, you know, today. I sat down with the mayor, and he said, hey, the best thing you can do is come here, and that's why I'm here tonight. So I'm asking if you could take a look at it to do an amendment for, you know, business owners. They need to go in, if there's a, you know, a storm or whatever, and they need to cut trees, hey, they can do that. But for a homeowner, maybe looking at 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, because when you look at this ordinance, it's from 7 in the morning to 11 at night. You can pretty much do anything you want, and nobody can do anything about it. So my tenant, for over a year, is on Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning at least, from 7 in the morning to 11 in the morning, is listening to either chainsaws or log splitters, whether they need the wood or not, and whether it's being attended or not. And that's really why I'm here.
Okay. Is the person running a business?
No. And he doesn't need that much wood to, you know, fire up that much.
Thank you for bringing it to
Mr.
our...
Regan,
Yes.
have you had a discussion with the gentleman?
Yes.
And as big as you are, he didn't stop?
Yes. Yes. And honestly, you know...
Call the mental health people.
Well, you know, I'm at the last straw. I'd hate to see, you know, my tenant leave,
Yeah.
or get another tenant, or, you know, try to sell the house or anything like that. They love living there. And, you know, quite a few of the other neighbors, they are, you know, not really happy about it, but they really haven't said anything because they don't want to have a problem with this neighbor.
All right.
All right?
Thank you very much for
Hey,
bringing it to our
you got it.
attention.
Thanks for the time.
Our pleasure.
Appreciate it. I got a guy with the blower, with the snow, oh, God.
You said your house is in Highland Lakes?
Yes. It's actually in Lake Wanda,
Okay.
but mailing address is Highland Lakes.
I can appreciate.
Are there any other comments? Yes, Mrs. Palladini?
Good evening, Jessie Palladini. I have absolutely nothing to say about the Land Conservancy, other than the fact that they've been contracted with this town for more than 10 years and have done some very good work here. But I will say that I'm sick and tired of you folks distorting,
Is pl-
taking out of context. I'll address who
Point
I
of-
feel like.
Please,
Thank you.
I will take care of the meeting. Please, please,
People in the audience.
As
I will,
said-
no calling out, please. I will take care of the meeting. You keep quiet.
Thank you.
Please address the council.
As I said, I am sick and tired of the constant taking out of context and distortion of things that were said and done at the Environmental Commission meeting concerning Camp Sussex. Thank you. I'm here tonight because there is a council person who thinks that it is acceptable or appropriate to threaten and harass members of the public. and attempt to intimidate them in order to silence their public opinion. I'm here to tell you tonight that I am not intimidated, and my opinion will never be silenced. Just like I was not intimidated by the township woman who fraudulently used my email address and registered my name on 19 different pornographic websites. She didn't intimidate me either, and I went to the police, told them whom I thought did it, and they charged and prosecuted her for her malicious acts. As the secretary of the Environmental Commission, I'm an independent contractor for the township, and in the past, certain council members have publicly made derogatory comments about my role as the environmental secretary at public meetings. My public comments at public meetings and my editorial opinions are protected speech. But council members' derogatory comments about me at public meetings are defamatory and actionable. I hope I have seen the last of the threats and the attempts at intimidation. But if not, the ACLUA is very interested in dealing with this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Palladini. Any other comments? Seeing no one come forward for additional comments, I'll ask for a motion to close the meeting to the public.
Motion?
Motion made by Mr. Lynch. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Wetzel. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Mayor, may we have your report,
Thank you,
please?
Mr. President. Excuse me, I do have a few things that I'd like to talk to the council about, but let me start by asking Mrs. Yetter to distribute to you the monthly revenue and expenditure report. This particular report will cover the first quarter of 2015.
Thank you.
And certainly any questions or comments that you may have about them, I certainly would look forward to hearing from you. Second item in my report is a very important one. You will recall that last year, we made application to the New Jersey DOT for help with a DOT grant for the repair of Lake Walkill Road. That grant was turned down in 2014. We again made application to the New Jersey DOT to help us with the repair of Walkill Road, Lake Walkill Road, and again, that application was turned down. And so I want to start at that point. For whatever the reasons are, I have contacted our state senator and asked Senator Oraho to contact Mr. Fox, the DOT, Secretary of the DOT, cabinet member, and see whether or not there may not be some discretionary funds, because certainly Lake Walkill Road is in need of our attention. Now, there's been a lot written and there's been a lot said, so I'd like to take the opportunity in this report to set the record straight and the facts. You will see in tonight's budget that we have in fact appropriated in the capital plan $100,000 toward the repair of Lake Walkill Road in 2015. That was anticipated, predicated upon a plan whereby over a 3-year period we would do a third, and a third of Lake Walkill Road and repair it. It's definitely in need of it. Hasn't been touched in many, many, many years. There's no argument about it. However, the balance of the first $500,000 that we were planning on using in 2015 was to come from 2 grants that were approved by the Wildlife Refuge, the National Wildlife Refuge, for us in the amount of $200,000 each, or $400,000. My bad in not realizing that when you deal with the Fed, there's no time limits. And so, to cut to the quick, that money will not be available to us until 2016, the money from the Fed. And it comes with some restrictions and things that this council and I believe, need to talk about and decide on. Because if Vernon Township were to accept that money from the wildlife refuge, we then would be tasked with meeting the federal highway authorities' specifications for building that road, which goes a lot deeper than simply milling it and doing an overlay, as we've done on Canister or Breakneck, where we have a good solid base. Lake Wallkill Road a week ago was cored in its entirety, and here's what we found, folks. There's nothing under that asphalt. There's no sub-base, there's some oil and stone, but there never was anything but asphalt laid down on an already oil and stone. So what does that mean? Let's cut to the quick, okay? If we take the money from the Fed, from wildlife, and there is the chance that we would be able to get 200,000 for 15 and 200,000 for 16, they're very much interested in seeing that road repaired since it runs along the edge of the wildlife refuge. But we would have to meet federal specifications. That will raise the projected cost from about 1.3 million to twice that amount, somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.6, and that's just an estimate at this time. Why am I bringing it out? Well, first of all, there are sections of that road that we must address in 2015. I have been in conference with Mr. Stoner, and we are definitely looking at ways to attack the worst parts of the road while we line up financing. I think, and this is predicated upon the information from our town engineer, who we have worked with on projects very successfully in the past, and I believe Mr. Stoner is qualified or more than any engineer in our area, that if we're going to commit to do this project, that we should in fact take the federal money, build the road to federal specifications. It is a main artery. It actually ends at where the county, at the entrance to Lake Wallkill, where the county just stops its ownership of Lake Wallkill Road. And from there, our basically mile and a half to the New York state line. That makes it an interstate route. And one of the things that has come to our attention since Orange County, New York, has prohibited trucks of over 10,000 gross vehicle weight from traveling on it. Many of the large trucks that buy aggregate at 284 aggregate on Route 284 just north of Sussex come down out of New York State and take Lake Wallkill Road down to the Owen Station over to Route 284. That's having a devastating effect on that section of roadway from Owen Station going north. So, I don't know what steps we might take, but I may very well be coming forward with some recommendations on weight limits on that road. I may also be coming forward with some recommendations as to how we should proceed, but we must proceed. There is no question in my mind that if we leave Lake Wallkill Road much longer, we will have returned it to its natural state. And to be frank with you, I don't believe the people that live in that part of town deserve that kind of service from the community. And I, for one, have committed to do something about it. And so I would ask your help in that process as we go forward.
Okay.
Last thing I have on my agenda, as you know, I distributed to you the appraisals that were requested on the Camp Sussex property. You've had them in your possession now, and if I had the opportunity to review them, as we must do, I would ask the council, now that you've seen the numbers, it frankly to me looks like we're just so very far apart, but I would like some direction from the council. So if I could have a motion as to whether or not you would like me to cease and desist, whether you want me to proceed to the next step, which would be an phase 1 environmental study, which entails some money. I'm awaiting the wish of the council.
Comments from the council?
I'd like to make a motion that the mayor cease the negotiations at this time.
Second.
Is it possible to, rather than saying cease, which makes it terminal, to place it on back burner, so it's just an item that is not very, very low importance, and seeing where we go from here?
I'd like the mayor to back off
If you make the
negotiations right now.
motion to cease, you would be able to restart the negotiations.
Right.
If the council's opinion changed, or if the facts presented themselves. So your motion isn't permanent in any
Okay.
way, okay? So if the facts change, or the opinion of the council changes, you always have the opportunity to give new direction to the administration.
Okay. Motion is on the floor, made by Mr. Lynch, seconded by Mr. Kadesh. Any questions or comments?
No, I think that we're just, right now, too far apart.
I agree. Okay.
And possibly with negotiations or what have you, two sides might be able to come together.
Well, based upon a positive vote, Dick, I will cease negotiations completely until further direction comes from the governing body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Just so we're, and whatever the wish of the council is fine by
We'll
me.
revisit it at another time.
May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto?
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen. That concludes my report for the evening.
Question, Mayor. With regards to the Lake Walk Hill Road, is there an advantage to the community, to the township, to having the specifications brought up to federal limits? I mean,
There's
will
several in
will
my
the Fed take it over?
There are several, in my opinion. The first advantage that I would speak to is that roads that are built to federal highway specifications are built to withstand axle loads of 80,000 pounds or more. The engineering studies will show you quite clearly that automobile traffic on road surfaces really have very, very little effect on the life of the pavement. What causes pavement failure is freeze-thaw, particularly in a situation like this. As you go north on Lake Walk Hill, there's a good section where the mountain comes right down to the edge of the highway. There's a trench that catches the water, but that water just simply seeps underneath where there is no subbase, and come wintertime, it freezes and pops. So the weather effect is big, but the most important in terms of the lifespan of a road surface is the number of axle loads and the weight of those axle loads as they transpire. You take a tractor trailer, it's hauling 40 ton of sand or gravel or whatever, and the truck weighs 40,000, you're talking about 40 tons on a road that basically has no subbase to it at all. So from that vantage point, unless the township or someone is prepared to prevent those trucks from traveling on it, and that's another whole issue, getting DOT approval for it. And I mean, I looked into it, it's not as easy as you think. I said, well, let's just put a weight limit on the thing. Let's do what Orange County did. Well, in New Jersey, okay, certain routes, and this is one of them, that connects the end of a county road with a state line, actually identifies that Lake Walk Hill section that we own as part of the interstate routes that are required. So the advantage is a road that will last, and also the advantage is at that point in time, I would then recommend to the county that we approach, to the council, that we then approach the county and say, look, it's been built to your specifications, by rights, you should own it.
Okay.
We shouldn't. Again, that's something for the future, but that's part of the thinking at this point in time. But the primary reason is that the traffic count on that road is increasing. It's increasing dramatically as people come out of Orange County down into Sussex County. It's one of the main arteries, as is 517. And so as a result, we really, I think, have to look at this very closely, work out a financing plan that doesn't have a negative impact on our budgets in the future, or at least one that we can afford. There'll be more on the subject as we go forward, but I wanted the council and the public to understand what has happened in terms of funding.
Thank you.
Excuse me, what's happening with the road right now? I mean, you said it was brought down to the core. I mean, how is the road right now?
Horrible.
Right, I mean, I haven't driven on it in the last couple weeks.
Well, it's because winter's over right now, but one of the things I did this afternoon before the meeting was to go and re-drive that road. And I can tell you that it needs attention, big time. I don't think it's safe in certain places, because the patching on top of the patching and the side, going north from Lake Wallkill entrance towards the New York State line, that whole right side of the road, all the way up, is now failing, and for the reason that I was talking about, in terms of the water getting underneath, freezing.
Are you looking to patch it right now for the meantime, or is it going to get that serious that there'll have to be emergency bonding forward?
First of all, I would not recommend we do any emergency bonding. I would recommend to the council that we develop a plan of finance for this that fits within the plans that we have. So the only reason I'm hesitating to give you an answer, Gene, is that at this point in time, I've tasked our engineer with, okay, come up with some ideas. And we've certainly discussed several. One, what would it cost to lay 2 inches on top of what's there right now to get us through this year while we get to the funding from the federal government? That could be an option. Two, we do, as you know, have our own paver, and our men are capable of paving and have done so. Maybe what we do is we go in where it's really, really bad, just beyond or just before you get to Bassett Bridge Road. It's horrible. I mean, go in, cut it out, and repave it ourselves, again, till we get to the federal money, assuming that that's the route that we go. I don't believe that's anywhere near needing to be closed. That's not the issue. It's not dangerous in that respect. But I certainly have been in receipt of communications from the people who drive it and the people who are there, and I couldn't agree with them more. It's been 30 years since Vernon Township did anything with Lake Wallkill Road, anything. And obviously what they did 30 years ago, I'm amazed it's lasted as long as it has, based upon the coring that I was talking about. What we did was actually went and drilled the length I forget exactly what it is, every 50 or 100 feet. There's no subbase. And, you know, when you lay asphalt on basically virgin ground, the fact that it lasted as long as it did surprises everyone.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
All members of the council have received copies of the minutes of our regular meeting of February 23rd. May I have a motion to place it on the table for consideration?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Kadesh. Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any comments, deletions, or additions to the minutes? If not, I'll ask for a roll call.
Councilmember Gaddis?
Yes.
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto?
Yes,
Carries to approve.
thank you. Our consent agenda this evening, Resolution 15-76, is a self-examination of the 2015 budget resolution. The local finance board examines 1/3 of all municipal budgets on an annual basis. The remaining 2/3 are eligible for self-examination. This resolution demonstrates that the township is performing a examination of the 2015 budget as reviewed by the CFO. Resolution 15-77, a resolution to read the 2015 municipal budget by title only. The township, by statute, is required to read the budget in full at the public hearing unless it meets certain requirements, which include posting a copy of the budget at the public library, publishing same, making it available in the township clerk's office, and passing a resolution to allow the budget to be read by title. The township has met those requirements, and this resolution allows the budget to be read by title at the public hearing. Resolution 15-78, authorizing a contract with the Land Conservancy of New Jersey for open space advisory consultant services in the amount not to exceed $13,000. The Land Conservancy has been administering the Township Open Space Program for a number of years. This resolution authorizes the award of contract for 2015. Resolution 15-79, approving volunteer firefighter membership transfer of Mr. Eugene W. Belushi. This resolution authorizes a transfer of membership to Highland Lakes Fire Department. Resolution 15-80, approving a solicitor's permit for waste management. This resolution authorize the solicitations by Waste Management of their services on public streets within the township. It does not, however, give Waste Management the authority to solicit private communities. Additionally, if a resident wishes to opt out of solicitation, they can file notice of same in the office of the township clerk. Resolution 15-81, an authorization to execute a developer's agreement with New Jersey CVS Pharmacy Incorporated in relation to preliminary and final site plan and subdivision. This resolution authorizes the township to execute the developer's agreement for CVS, which was previously before the Land Use Board. Resolution 15-82 is an acceptance of a performance bond from New Jersey CVS Pharmacy. This resolution authorizes acceptance of said performance bond. May I have a motion to have these items placed on the floor for consideration?
I make a motion, we accept the consent agenda.
I'd like to amend that to separate 1578, 1581, and 1582.
I made a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
I actually would just like to have some clarification on things, so I don't understand why you're
May
just
I have
putting
a
a
s- may I
consent
have-
agenda.
May I have a second to the motion to place it on the floor for discussion?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Wetzel. Mrs. Murphy? I'm sorry?
Well,
Your
he was-
comments?
Anyhow. Actually, on 1578, on the contract with the Land Conservancy, and I know that they're tasked with doing a job that is of benefit, but a few meetings ago, I mentioned that I had called them because I just had some questions as to what was actually with the process with Camp Sussex, and of course was faced with a no call back. And of course, I was told that that was not my place to call them. However, in reviewing this resolution, actually on the last page under E, under advising, number 2, it says, provide regular progress reports to the mayor, township council, and administration as needed and upon request. So I'm just pointing out that what they say that they will do is not something that they're actually adhering to. So now that I at least have that, if I have a call again, I'll at least have that to be faced with. The other is on 1580, this solicitor's agreement for waste management. And my question is really to John. Can the council actually propose something similar to this when it relates to like the property maintenance ordinance, when it comes to foreclosures and abandoned homes, and as far as when you have these property maintenance companies coming into town that nobody knows who they are? Would it actually be something similar to this, to like a solicitor's?
One of the components of the property maintenance ordinance that was proposed was requiring the registration of anybody who owns the foreclosure to have a in-state New Jersey address. That's the closest parallel I can draw for you.
Right, but I guess what I'm looking at are the maintenance companies that come into town, they pull up in their vans, and they may have worked for they may be working for the bank and have access to that home, but they could be revisiting the homes and actually stealing things from it. And it's just, how do we, that's why I just looked at this and said, would this relate to having some of these maintenance companies register if they're doing work in town? That's all.
I also felt that 81 and 82 are important enough that they should be voted on by themselves. It's a pretty important resolution.
Are there any questions on them?
No.
Point of comment on the Land Conservancy. I've had extensive time to work with them and have seen the benefit of their involvement within the township. Mr. Wetzel and I have trodden many paths and gone to many places in the community that didn't really know existed. And saw an awful lot of pieces of property that were not, pretty much not marketable. And by virtue of the actions of the Land Conservancy, we were able to get them back onto the tax rolls. And to the extent that we do not have to pay for the taxes for the board, the school board, and for the county, because of their actions of the Land Conservancy bringing it to our attention. So I think in terms of what they have given to us is far exceeds the amount of money that we've been, paying them over the last few years. Just a comment. Any other comments?
Before I took office under this form of government, under the previous form of government, the Land Conservancy was also brought up in conversation and for a resolution to be awarded a contract. At that time, they were an asset to this town. They brought grants forward, and I think that there is a lot of political bantering going on here, and that's the reason why there is a lot of pushback on not having the Land Conservancy. And if, in fact, they're not answering questions of the council, that is troublesome, and they should answer the questions of the council, and they should answer the questions of the mayor. And as far as I see, they're a benefit to Vernon Township.
Thank you.
I have to agree with Pat. We went out and we must have looked at 25 pieces of property. Took pictures.
Probably closer to 100.
That many?
Yeah, because we had four times we went out.
And we gave all that information, and all that information has been put to good use as far as the tax records, et cetera. And I see no reason to discontinue the use of this company.
Mr. Mayor.
If I may comment, first of all, the issue of answering the council's questions, I don't believe that the Land Conservancy has ever denied this entire council a request. However, I need to be sure that we understand the facts. I believe the time in which Mrs. Murphy was calling the Land Conservancy, the appraisals were still being done. It was still in the phase of a negotiation. That negotiation falls under our charter, under our statutes, and under our administrative code, specifically to the mayor. And therefore, had the council, in a letter from the majority, written to the Land Conservancy and said, we would like this information, I, as the mayor and the chief executive officer, would have arranged that either meeting here with you or a response. But at the time that the negotiations were still going on, to respond to any one of you individually, questions about what was going on in the negotiation actually is a violation of the Faulkner Act.
I disagree. Calling up a Land Conservancy when they say they can answer general questions about the process is not a violation of anything.
Council, we've disagreed
No,
on many things.
exactly.
The law.
This was not a negotiation that I was doing, it was getting information. There's no reason why they should not be calling back.
I disagree.
That's fine, it's your choice.
They are professional.
Well, you know what? Actually, you'd be better off just leaving that go.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah, you would.
I believe in what I say. I work
That's
with
fine.
them. They've cataloged every piece of
Are we gonna
property that
continue
we
with
have.
this meeting, or are we gonna?
Oh, we're gonna try and shut me up now? Is that what you're gonna do? I had the floor.
You don't have the floor.
Yes, he
Just-
did. You asked him a question, he's
Oh,
responded.
just stop, Pat. Just move on.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. As regards to CVS, I think the public would be very, very interested in knowing that this is going to be a very, very significant project. It's going to be one of the anchors in the town center. And I think you're going to be very proud of the way this is coming through. Land Use Board met a number of times, and I want to compliment the Land Use Board, especially its leader, Martin Theobald, and members of the board. Even though I sit on it, we were able to move this through very expeditiously, and to the point where the attorneys and the development people for CVS were very pleased. And in doing so, we were able to put together some looks, some aesthetic appearances that will carry through on the total town center appearance. And they were willing to work with us in developing that particular look. They afforded us the ability to come back a number of times to review those particular questions and to make sure that what they were doing was in line with the theme that the Township Land Use Board has developed for the town center. So I think once it gets started, give it some time, but you're going to be absolutely amazed at the way it looks. So there are if there are no further comments, I'll ask for a roll call
I do
vote.
actually have a question of Mr. Urson. Mr. Urson, in this CVS Resolution 1581, and I'm not actually sure of what his connection is, but my broker is somehow connected, maybe getting paid, not quite sure what through the transaction. Me reading this through, I mean, it doesn't look like it has anything to do with that, but I just wanted to get clarification from you. I mean, I'm just putting it out on the record. My broker, real estate broker, probably has something to do possibly with the land, but I don't know because I couldn't find anything recorded, and
So you're
I have no conflict.
You're asking me a conflict of ethics question.
Yes.
Conflict of ethics questions are very fact-specific. If you can't tell me the facts, I can't give you an answer.
well, I'm just putting it out there that I don't really know the facts, but.
Well, either do I.
Yeah.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes, no on 78.
Well, it's one motion.
Yes, you can.
Yes, I understand that.
Mr. Kadesh, you understand that your vote's going to be recorded as a yes on the
I do.
consent? Okay.
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto?
Yes. We have introductions of first readings of proposed ordinances. This was an ordinance that was tabled on March 23rd, 2015. An ordinance amending various sections of the Code of the Township of Vernon to correct references to the Township Manager. This ordinance corrects various sections of the Township Code as a result of the change of government. It does not vest or remove the authority of any individual, but merely corrects the verbiage in the Town Code to match the form of government. For your information, Chapter 94 of the Police Code was amended in part previously. This amends the other sections and reinforces the previous changes. Further, the township does not have a township manager, nor is it defined in our current township code or administrative code. The position of town manager was removed at the time of the township changed its form of government in 2011. Since 1508 was tabled at our March 23rd meeting, may I have a motion to bring ordinance 1508 off the table for consideration?
Make the motion that we bring ordinance 1508 off the table for consideration.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Murphy. Any questions or comments on ordinance 1508? Not, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto?
Yes. Motion will be introduced to be at a public hearing to be held on April 27th, 2015.
I apologize, Council President. I thought that motion that I was
Yeah,
recording the vote.
it was. That the motion that was just voted on was simply to take it off the table, bring it before the council for consideration.
Right.
If someone wants to introduce it at this point, they would introduce it at this meeting with the second reading, as noted on April 27th.
May I have a motion to have this introduced for a second reading to be held on April 27th?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Lynch. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Murphy.
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes?
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto?
Yes.
Motion carries to introduce ordinance 1508 with a public hearing to be held on April 27, 2015.
Thank you. An ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Vernon, County of Sussex, and the State of New Jersey, amending certain portions of Chapter 99 entitled Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 250 entitled Fees and Escrows, and Chapter 269 entitled Fire Safety of the Township Code. The county assignment judge authorizes the maximum amount of penalties to be charged by the various municipal courts. Per Judge Weisenbeck's authorization, the fees are being amended. This ordinance changes the Township Code to match the order. May I have a motion to introduce 1509, ordinance 1509, with a public hearing to be held on April 27th, 2015?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Lynch. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Murphy.
So some of these things are listed, should be removed. Are they going to be removed? For instance, 250-10, Section 6 and 7.
Ms. Hurst?
So in your, if the ordinance is introduced as currently written, just give me 1 second. You cited section 250.
Yeah.
Yes.
Section 3, Chapter 250, entitled Fees and Escrows, hereby amended and supplemented. And as you look down the list that's been provided in the ordinance, you'll see what's being removed, what's being changed, and what's being amended. The word removed was noted by the municipal court in her recommendations when she provided it to the council. The actual ordinance itself reflects all of the changes and what is going to be changed and reviewed, removed, or otherwise amended with fee schedules. And that reflects the judge's order.
So by the 27th, we'll have an amended
No,
list.
this is it. All the items are included in the ordinance as was provided to you.
Well, but my question is, it says should be removed. Will 9911B be removed?
In the ordinance that.
It is. So when you go down 9911 is there, but 9911B is not in the ordinance. This is from your old ordinance book. This was just handwritten notes of the
Okay.
the
My
clerk or
question's
someone else.
answered.
In the actual ordinance itself, for example, 11B is removed.
Are there any other comments? May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto?
Yes.
Motion carries to introduce ordinance 1509 with a public hearing to be held on April 27th.
Thank you. Moving to our second reading of public ordinance, 1510, I apologize, I missed one. An ordinance amending the code of the Township of Vernon to discontinue the Advisory Board of Health. The Health Department functions were transferred to the County of Sussex in 2008. The remaining functions, that is the Registrar of Vital Statistics and permitting, have been transferred to other departments. This ordinance removes the section of the code and reserves the section for future use as it is no longer needed. May I have a motion to introduce ordinance 1510 with a public hearing to be held on April 27, 2015?
So move.
Moved by Mr. Kadesh. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Mr. Wetzel. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto?
It won't be a big one. Public hearing, second reading of ordinances.
Sorry, Council President, I didn't hear your vote.
Yes. 1505, an ordinance regulating the statutory authority of Verizon, New Jersey Incorporated, its successors, and its signs to the use of various public streets, roads, avenues, highways, and other public ways in the Township of Vernon, Sussex County, New Jersey, for its local and through lines and other communications facilities, and prescribing the conditions thereof. This ordinance provides that Verizon can continue to install, operate, and inspect manhole, cables, wires, poles, posts, in furtherance of the township's communications. This is not a new agreement or ordinance, but a renewal of the 1965 ordinance that has been in place. May I have an ordinance to open may I have a motion to open the public hearing for the ordinance 1505?
Motion.
Motion made by Mrs. Murphy,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Kadesh. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The meeting is open to the public to address this particular ordinance. If you have any comments, please step forward.
Good evening, Council President. Mark Bulgari, Director of External Affairs, Verizon, New Jersey. Just on behalf of Verizon, I just wanted to thank the council for their consideration, and Mayor Marata. I thank you again. This was the second hearing, and I do appreciate it and look forward to the next time we meet, which will be quite a few years down the line. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Good evening.
Any other comments? I'll ask for a motion to close the meeting to the public.
Motion.
Motion made by Mr. Lynch. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kadesh. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion to adopt 1505 and place it on the floor for consideration?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kadesh. Is there a second? I'll second the motion. Comments on this particular ordinance? Not, I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto?
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt ordinance 1505.
Thank you. Ordinance 1506, an ordinance adding section 52-7 regarding clothing allowances for volunteer emergency service personnel. This ordinance provides for a stipend of $300 to be given to volunteer emergency service personnel if they meet certain training and service benchmarks. Mr. Lynch, do you have any comment on this, since you were the proponent of this particular ordinance?
I'd like to open the floor to public comments.
Mr. Lynch has made a motion to open
Second.
comment, floor for public comments, seconded by Mr. Kadesh. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Floor is open for comment on this particular ordinance. Does anybody have any comments?
Gary Martinson, Vernon. I didn't understand some of this, so I talked, some of the customers and some of the people I deal with are from other towns, fire chiefs and stuff in other towns, people who work on ambulance squads. And I actually went through a lot of this, and they all thought it was great and well done, and that it should be done. So I likewise, now that I understand it completely, agree. Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing no other comments, I'll ask for a motion to close the meeting to the public.
Motion.
Motion made by Mr. Lynch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Wetzel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion to adopt ordinance 1506?
I'd like to make that motion to adopt ordinance 1506. Tonight is a bittersweet evening. You would probably see this chamber lined up with volunteer emergency service personnel to the point where it would be a sea of blue. But since the death of one of our own occurred this weekend, we know where our priorities are in the fire service. And one of the things that you learn when you get into the fire service is lest we forget. And it is written on some of our fire apparatus here in Vernon Township. We never forget our own, and we never forget our families, and we really are a brotherhood, one of the largest fraternities there are. And this is a small token of the appreciation of the people of Vernon Township. And I don't want to hear any applause for the council doing this. Any applause should be given to the volunteers that serve this community 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, in all types of weather, in all types of emergencies. Some are small and some are really, really hazardous. And I've been there with most of you in the back room, and in good times and in bad, we've all worked together in one way or the other. And thank you for your service to Vernon Township, and I'd like to make that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Lynch, and I proudly like to second it, and simply with a comment, and I've mentioned this before, thank you. You allow us all in this community to sleep well at night. Thank you. So I am seconding the motion. Motion is on the floor. Any comments or concerns, or questions? None, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Councilmember Koenig?
Yes.
Councilmember Lynch?
Absolutely, yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto?
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt ordinance 1506.
Public hearing of 2015
Give
municipal.
them a round of
budget.
applause back there. These are all dying to get out of here. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Bernie.
Public hearing of our 2015 municipal budget. We have our CFO, Mrs. Yetter, here this evening. Do you have any comments regarding the user-friendly budget?
Yes, I was prepared to present the user-friendly budget. However, the Division of Community Affairs has changed the budget again, and they had asked that I received another notice today saying that the division has been made aware of certain issues with the user-friendly budget form that are in the process of being resolved. The revised form will be posted shortly and announced through another GovConnect notice. Please refrain from using the existing form until the new version is posted and an announcement is made. So once I get that, I will fill it out and I will present it to you, and it'll also be available online.
Okay. So on that basis, we will, do you hold off on this?
We have to hold off on the
On
user-friendly
the
budget
budget
before we
portion,
get a
okay.
revised form from the state.
Wasn't so user-friendly.
It was not.
Exactly. We'll move to the adoption of our 2015 municipal budget. May I have a motion to adopt the 2015?
Yeah, you still have to have the public hearing before we.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I apologize. May, on the user-friendly budget?
No, on the regular budget.
Regular budget, so I'm putting it on the floor for a public hearing. Okay. May I have a motion to place the 2015 municipal budget on the floor for consideration for public hearing?
I make the motion that we open the floor to a public hearing on the 2015 municipal budget.
I'll
Is there a
second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Wetzel. Motion made by Mr. Lynch. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any comments from the public?
Good evening, Gary Martinson, Vernon. I noticed in the beginning where the list of people that signed this, that the business administrator's position and the individual holding that position is not listed in the names of municipal officials. as the state statutes state that the BA, Business Administrator, shall assist in preparation of the budget, I thought it might be, if not this time, at least in future ones, you might want to add that to the list of people that should be on the signature list, since it does say shall assist. And if the person assisted, then I would imagine that they would want to be signed on it as well. I also noticed that many of the grants and expenditures that seem to occur every year, but they're dependent on grants, aren't on here. So I'm assuming that that's why they're not on there, because until you get the grant, you can't know. That's just an observation. But speaking of grants, and in fairness, I think that in fairness to any and all organizations and foundations, that any money given out to specific organizations should be part of a grant. And that just like the just passed stipends for the firemen and volunteers, there's very specific things that have to occur and be part of that. And also, I would suggest possibly that if the township is going to award or provide money to organizations, foundations, etc., that perhaps they could divvy it up into smaller amounts and have several organizations possibly vie for that through a grant process of some kind, because that's the way normally government works to me. That's the way it should work. Last, and it seems in most areas the salaries, well, let me put it this way. I have similar concerns to what was raised before, and that all of the other expenses and things that are in the budget seem fine. But when I get to the salaries and expenses for general government, I notice that the mayor and council's salary and wages, the expenses went up 68.2%. Now, the thing is, based on what was actually spent last year, it actually went up 87%. So you're going from having spent $2,846 to saying you want to allocate $22,000. That, in basic business 101, makes no sense at all, especially if I look at the other departments. I look at some of the other departments, and the other two biggest, the amount too, the other two biggest amounts are actually going down. There's something wrong here that for one area, one department, you're shifting around it perceptually to me anyway, you kept it the same, but you moved it to expenses. That perceptually to me seems very wrong. You had all that extra money, you didn't use it. If you don't need the money to go up 87% for an expense, and to have an expense that's $22,000 when you only spent $2,800 the prior year, I'm sorry, but I have trouble with that.
Any other comments? Seeing no other comments, I'll ask for a motion to close the meeting to the public.
Motion.
Motion made by Mr. Lynch. Is there a second?
Second?
Second made by Mr. Wetzel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. May I have a motion to adopt the 2015 municipal budget?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Lynch. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Wetzel. Any comments, questions? Council? Now I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Councilmember Kadesh?
No.
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Well, before I vote, I'd really like somebody to convince me why I should vote yes. To answer Gary's question, that $22,000, just so you know, I originally asked for a line item to be put in under the council for legal. And as it stands right now, in the past, we have a conflict attorney right now who's Mr. Wenner. Mr. Wenner is the MUA attorney. John Urson, as you all know, was the MUA attorney prior, and he was here, he was town council when the MUA was set up. The way I look at it is, right now, if the council has questions regarding the MUA, we don't really have, in my mind, I don't have an attorney to go to that is a conflict attorney that is not somehow connected from prior having worked on the MUA. So I feel we needed money in the budget to be able to have some type of expense to go to a conflict attorney for that. Now, as far as, I did not set the amount. The amount was just, actually, the date that we were, when it was introduced, what happened is we were just told by the business administrator what changes were being made in the budget. In addition to that, $10,000 was put into place under the mayor's column for attorney fees. And actually, I did speak to the mayor on Monday about that. And what ended up happening is, I'm not in favor of putting a line item in the budget for $10,000 under the mayor's. As far as I know, from day one, if it's in the budget, the mayor can spend it. Now, when I said that to the mayor just last Monday, he said he should have a right to be able to defend himself at time of conflict. Can somebody here tell me that that's not the case, that will, because Brian actually at that introduction, or it might have been the following meeting when I brought that up, thought that that's not the case, that he would be able, that he would have to come to the council. But as far as I know, it's been drummed into us. If it's in the budget, he can spend it. Now, we have no oversight. We changed, we don't get to approve bills. The only oversight this council has is the budget. And once we approve it, anything that's in there can be spent.
Let me see if I can put a different light on this. A few years back, this particular government was changed to a government that was modeled after the federal government and also the state government. And in both of these situations, the budget is approved as proposed by either the governor or the president in his office. As far as oversight, once that amount of money is approved, either the governor or the president has the right to spend that money as they see fit. It's an amount that has been put aside for their particular use. So you ask, what then does a council do when they feel there is some question or wrongdoing? Well, if you consult your administrative code, you do have the power to investigate. You have the power to subpoena. You have the power to bring in professionals for investigation. That becomes the basis for your oversight. We are no longer a government that has a mayor that reports to a council. Just not there. It's a different form of government. Whether you like it or not, that's the structure. You can't be, in half in one park and half in the other. It's either going to be the way it's supposed to be, or it's not. And in this particular case, the community said they wanted an elected mayor, and the attentive responsibilities given to that individual. They also wanted a legislative body that had restricted responsibilities that they could protect the community by virtue of requesting an investigation. It's very, very simple. We just need to get a majority of the council to do that, and we can move forward with an investigation.
Well, if I might add to that, when I brought this up, I never went to anything with wrongdoing. I simply spoke about the council being able to go to an attorney that had no conflict with the MUA. Then, as far as what I'm saying with the mayor is having that line item under mayor, he said he would be able to then go hire counsel, hire an attorney if there was a conflict for him. I bring it up because it was Brian that said, oh no, I think he needs council approval. And I said, Brian, it was drummed in the first year that if it's in the budget, the mayor can spend it. That's where I have an issue with it, because if there's money in there, and this town's been ridden with way too many lawsuits. And I'm not comfortable, and I think it's the wrong thing for this town to have a line item in that. And I made it very clear before. I've made it clear to the mayor. You know, and just even going through this whole budget process, I still believe there's a whole step missing. I'm sure most of you will not agree, but the budget was distributed on February 3rd. We were told that we would get to meet with department heads and ask questions. The budget sessions were held on February 18th, 19th, 23rd. When I made an attempt to ask about equipment that was included in the capital budget, Mr. Rizzuto, you stopped me from asking the DPW department head because you said we weren't talking about capital budget.
That's correct.
But the point is, then when it came time for police, I was not able to ask them either. Now, you and I and two other council persons, we went to a budget seminar on the 28th, and they brought up issues there of items that are in our capital budget that, you know what, doesn't mean that they have to be there or not have to be there, but it was certain items for discussion. But what happens, we went from work sessions right to introduction. So on March 9th, the budget was introduced, the CFO read through a list of changes, and the amounts that were being put under mayor council actually were never spoken. Some of the council persons I know knew what the numbers were, but they were not verbalized. Mr. Kadish had to ask for that by email to see what the changes were. So we were actually given a budget to be introduced without being told what those numbers were. I'm sure it was an oversight, it wasn't on purpose.
Regarding.
So in my opinion, there's one step missing. So let me recap. We receive the draft budget, we meet with the department heads and ask questions and make recommendations. I think there should have been another meeting to discuss the changes that'll be acceptable to the council, and then introduce the budget and adopt it. And that never happened. It just went from one process to the next. So what we're doing is we're voting now for everything in that budget and saying, go ahead, run with it. And most of it, I'm sure, is okay. I said I had a problem with that one item, and it's from past experience of things that have happened.
With regards to the legal counsel, there's $5,000 in there for the council for legal consideration. That particular $5,000 is accessed by majority vote of the council, not by individuals seeking to, obtain legal counsel outside of what is already
But that's not really the issue.
I'm just pointing it out.
I
You
was
asked-
just
you
explaining to
asked
Gary,
about that.
and Gary is correct, because all of the money was actually just shifted around.
And as
Instead of-
far as the changes that were made, they were listed, and they were any number of changes that were presented to the council with, as a matter of fact, every recommendation or every question that the council had was addressed by the mayor and the CFO, and changes were made.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, they were.
No, I asked for a work session, I was denied it.
No, you didn't ask for, I'm not talking about a work session, I'm talking about the amounts of money that were made, that were changed, that affected the budget.
Well, I'd like to make my statement.
Okay.
We have a proposed budget, which I pointed out had close to $2 million of surplus revenue out and above.
Thank you. Excuse me, Mr. Kadish.
Yes.
You've already voted.
Yes, I'd still like
I
to
know, but
discuss it now that we've opened for
Mrs. Murphy was
discussion.
voting. Mrs. Murphy is voting.
Well, I was still trying to get, so you answered my question. The issue that I feel that this is, it's not good for Vernon Township. And the other item that I was bringing up is items in the capital budget. Since 2012, we've been putting all the police vehicles in the capital budget. Yes, I know you can because they're SUVs, but we're borrowing money, we're putting it on a credit card, and we're not putting any of them in the operating budget. Although allowable, at that work session, John Reinhardt said, It's not really something that should be happening.
No, it's not something that he would do.
He would
He
do.
gave personal opinions.
Exactly.
Well,
And-
You're listening to his personal opinion, not fact.
And I'm sure I could find any
Well,
number of
if
CFOs
I were
that
able
disagree.
to then ask the questions during the budget work sessions, maybe I would have had fact. But that never happened. We're told that we'll have access and be able to speak, and then we're told we're not. That's all I asked, and you were here, Dick. I asked, I wanted to speak, I wanted to find out from them. And that was actually before we went to the budget work session. I knew to ask. I'm not being unreasonable. I'm just being told that if I don't vote yes, the mayor said, I'll go after you politically. What?
Come on, I never said that.
You said that in your office on last Monday. Which is usually why I say I would
May I
not
have the
be-
vote, please?
No.
You're not, your vote is no.
My vote's no.
Thank you. No for a budget that remains tax flat. Okay. Mr. Lynch?
I already voted yes.
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel,
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto.
Proudly, yes.
I have no for Mr. Kadesh, yes for Mr. Lynch, no for Mr. Murphy, yes for Mr. Wetzel, and yes for Council President Rizzuto.
Yes for Mr. Lynch.
Yes.
Okay,
Motion carries to adopt 2015 municipal budget.
thank you. Moving to council appointments, we have a senior citizens committee, and recommending the appointment, 2 members to that committee, Nancy Golden and Josephine Prisco, for an unexpired term.
So move.
Moved by Mr. Kadesh. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Wetzel. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Kadesh,
Yes.
Councilmember Lynch,
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy,
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel,
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto.
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt resolution 1583.
That concludes our agenda. Council comments, Mrs. Murphy?
I actually have a couple things. The Sussex County Association of Realtors requested that, they said April is Fair Housing Month, and they asked if we would be able to add a proclamation to our agenda next month. I'll give you a copy of what they sent me. And because I guess April is Fair Housing Month, so I'll hand that out. One of the other things is, what I have is I have a copy of an ordinance that Andover actually adopted in 2011, and it has to do with awarding of public professional services and vendor contracts. And I'd like to have the council review this for consideration or something similar to it. I'll hand that out.
Please hand it to the clerk.
Certainly. And as far as the Property Maintenance Committee that we spoke of at the work session, the Property Maintenance Committee that we spoke of setting up at the work session,
I'll be addressing that prior to the next meeting.
you'll be addressing it, but it'll be a council decision.
No, I approve, I make the committees. I'd like to have you chair it.
Well, and I'd like to know who's going to be on it first.
Anybody only people from within the community.
I get it.
Thank you.
I understand, but I don't really think that it should be one person's decision of who to put on the Property Maintenance Committee. You already had your chance of addressing it, and it turned out to be a mess.
I beg your pardon.
It was.
After you stacked the room with all
Oh, no, I
realtors,
did
yes, I can
not.
understand
Oh,
that.
no, I did not stack no room. You were the only one that was being stacked that day.
No.
To go on,
Council President will appoint the committee. If you want to chair it, fine. If you don't, please let me know.
Well, on March 25th, the Sussex County Freeholders adopted a resolution supporting steps by the New Jersey officials to protect and support federal military bases located in New Jersey. I would like to see the council
adopt a resolution by supporting that also.
Agenda for the next meeting. Well, you know, Mr. Rizzuto, it is April. It's April 13th, and you know what? If you actually, as the council president, made an attempt to actually try to reach out to some
Mrs.
council
Murphy-
persons, you've called me at
Murphy, when
least once.
when you've chaired as many meetings as I have, then you can begin to question my ability to do so. I chose to make this meeting as the way it stands and to place it on the next agenda. If you don't like it, that's too bad.
All I'm saying is, as for my final comment, is that as a council president, I did vote for you, but I feel you're not doing a good job. You don't reach out to the council. As long as you feel you have your
Have I
agenda met,
ever not spoken to you?
you do not call. You've called once.
Why should I call you?
Because you're the council president.
If I have information that is necessary for me to bring to your attention, I will do so. I've spoken to Mr. Kadish any number of times.
Well, you never reach out with anything on
There
the
hasn't
agenda. It
been
just
any
shows.
necessity for me to bring anything to your attention.
Well,
It's
actually-
on the agenda, you have the backup information. Why do I want to talk to you about it?
Exactly, that's my point. That's how you work with
No, on the
people.
contrary. We
Actually-
conduct our meeting in public.
Right, but that's how you
We
work with
conduct
people.
our business in public.
Glad you said it. That's all I have.
Mr. Kadish.
I'll finish my statement. We have passed a budget, which I pointed out has close to $2 million of surplus revenue out and above operating costs and debt. That's too much. For instance, one example, in 2014, we realized $782,986 in local revenues. We budgeted in 2015 for $645,170. That's a $138,000 surplus built into this year's budget. That's just one example. I had asked for an additional work session, was denied. Whether some minor changes, the mayor suggested I meet with our CFO, who was helpful, but in comparing the new budget with the old, there were no changes. We have a mayor who has made it well known that he'll make no further changes. We have a mayor who also has made it clear that once we approve the budget, we no longer have any control on how the money is spent. As a matter of fact, the introduction of tonight's ordinance 1508, Article 3, does just that. It currently reads, "A bill or claim duly certified shall be presented to the mayor and the township council for approval for payment of its regular meeting. All bills or claims to be considered by the governing body shall be made available to every member of said governing body before each meeting." The new section is to read, "The bill of or claim duly certified shall be presented to the mayor for approval of payment." The council has no oversight role in this new change. Is any mayor infallible? Even if the council's role is only ceremonial, it's the council who's ultimately responsible and must remain so. At our March 23rd meeting, I asked if the new ambulance chassis were four-wheel drive. Bill Zuckerman replied that they were. Then I asked for a copy of the bid specs, which were released on February 6th. They specified rear-wheel drive. We, the council, are not being given accurate information. In 1998, our manager, Meredith Stengel, wrote a report regarding municipalities giving money to not-for-profits. It's not allowed in most towns. I believe we should not be giving $3,000 to the Historical Society after donating the use of a building. We have a hotel tax could partially support this purpose. But we don't do that. That gets put into the general fund. The EDAC, an advisory committee, is getting $9,000, essentially duplicating the expenses from last year for a one-time expense for getting Shop Vernon online. No such costs are necessary this year. The mayor's office and the council should be separate pages and separate budgets. They're two wholly independently charged parts of government with different purposes. When we ask for legal expenses for the council, we did not intend this to be freely used by the mayor without direction by the council. This budget gives the mayor the right and the money to sue petitioners without a vote by the council. This is a budget that depends on temporary financing of $8 million for various purposes, including police vehicles. While it's legal to include four-wheel drive police vehicles to bond in the capital budget, I don't believe it's advisable to put all of them in permanent bonding. They will still have to be replaced after 100,000 miles, and we'll still be paying for them after 5 years. Some of these vehicles should be paid out of operating expenses. So that's why I can't support this current budget. I wanted to have some changes.
Thank you. Mr. Lynch.
Some weather we're having.
It's going to snow.
I have to tell you, I think that having 3 years of a budget that comes in with a tax decrease, and then the fourth year having a tax that is flat, I'm pretty proud to be a member of this council. That's all I got to say.
Mr. Watson?
Yeah, I'd like to challenge Mr. Kadish on a couple of issues. One, I think it's just a personal vendetta against the head of the Historical Society. He wanted to give them any money because there was a conflict of interest between the two of you. Two, Gene and I were on the Economic Development Committee when it first started. Eddie Dunn actually was the one who started the idea of the CARD program. And if you deny these people and the job that they're doing and the professional people that have now come aboard the Economic Development Committee, well, you can't see the trees for the forest, or you can't see the forest for the trees. And as far as Mrs. Murphy is concerned and legal, who's gonna pay for your letters from Mr. Dagger?
I don't think that's any of your concern.
Well, it is.
And it's really not.
$5,000 our budget, and you're chastising.
John,
the
could you
mayor
please
here who
stop
hasn't
him from speaking?
touched anything.
Mr. Daggett has nothing to do with you. So I'd ask you to refrain from discussing it.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to make another comment, Pat, if you don't mind. The Veterans Cemetery, basically, I don't know, Bill, whether you could fill in, but it cannot be utilized until $1 million in donations comes from private individuals. It's a cemetery, it's the first cemetery for veteran from Vietnam, and it's not supported by any government agency, and I really think that you should keep your eyes out for anyone who is collecting money legitimately to support that cemetery. They need $1 million in order to make it sustainable in terms of its maintenance before they can even open it. They have 200 people who are applying to be buried there, and it's really a good thing to support. I think that basically you should be aware of it and keep your eye out for where you can donate.
If anybody would like any information on it, I am a proud sponsor of it, that I've donated money in the past. I have John Harrigan's phone number in my phone. I can contact him right away.
The only comments I'd like to make is, as far as the ambulance is concerned, the specs were developed by the people in the EMT service. They felt...
That's not the issue, Pat.
No, they felt that it wasn't necessary to have an all-wheel drive vehicle. It would have...
That's not the issue.
It
The
would have...
issue is I wasn't given the correct information.
It would have substantially increased the price of the vehicle. Secondly, as far as the using bonding to fund current expenses, that was categorically denied by our auditor.
That isn't what I said.
The decision to place the police vehicles as a capitalized item is within the prerogative of the law.
Yeah.
And I know Mrs. Murphy made comment about what one particular CFO might do. However, that individual is no different than any other CFO and may have a different point of view from somebody else. The township did not violate any law. These vehicles are being, you're assuming a 100,000-mile replacement. I'm running a Jeep with over 165,000, so it seems to me that they should be able to get a little bit more out of them, but to change the oil, there you go. And I'm sure they have plenty of oil here to do something like that, so. I have no other comments. I ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Mr. Lynch. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Murphy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.